Humiliation burns in Jake's throat as the board delivers the ultimatum. 48 hours. He escapes to a greasy spoon diner, the smell of stale coffee clinging to the cracked vinyl. Rough night? The waitress asks, oblivious to the empire crumbling around him. Jake doesn't know it yet, but she holds the key. What if a broken billionaire walked into a small-town diner searching for solace and found the one thing he didn't even know he needed? A waitress with nothing but a napkin sketch in a world of untapped potential. Or's Jake Matthews, 47, was a legend carved in ambition from a scrappy kid in a Chicago suburb. He'd clawed his way to billionaire status. His company, Matthews Innovations, a tech titan that connected millions through its apps and platforms. His charisma could light up boardrooms. His drive could bend steel. But legends are fragile, and now his empire was a house of cards, a string of catastrophic missteps and overhyped AI startup that imploded. A merger with a shady European firm that backfired had left the company drowning in debt. Investors were fleeing, creditors were pounding, and the board was plotting his execution. Jake sat alone in his penthouse office, the Chicago skyline, a cruel mirror of his fading glory. His phone buzzed with venom, missed call. Claire, his wife, had walked out 3 months ago, taking their 16-year-old daughter Lily with her. Lily's last text, "Why don't you care?" was a dagger in his chest. Another notification. Board. Ultimatum, 48 hours to present recovery plan. The message was clear. Save the company or watch it be sold to vultures. His reflection in the glass desk showed a stranger, graying temples, bloodshot eyes, a man unraveling under the weight of his own creation. The sterile glow of his office felt like a tomb. He grabbed his coat, slipping past his assistants, worried glances, and drove out of the city, the skyline fading like a broken promise. 30 miles later, he pulled into the cracked parking lot of the Silver Spoon, a diner in a forgotten town. Its neon sign flickered, and the air smelled of grease and nostalgia. Inside, red vinyl booths, a jukebox humming Johnny Cash, and a handful of regulars offered the anonymity he craved. Jake slid onto a counter stool, just another tired man in a rumpled suit, seeking refuge from a world that no longer made sense. Emma Carter, 29, moved through the diner with a grace born of necessity, her stained apron a badge of survival. She'd worked the night shift at the Silver Spoon for 5 years, ever since Tommy, her 4-year-old son, became her universe. The diner's $12 an hour wage and meager tips kept their one-bedroom apartment's lights on, but just barely. Emma's dreams of becoming a graphic designer were buried under diaper bills, daycare costs, and the relentless grind of single motherhood. Yet her spirit refused to break, her smile a quiet rebellion against a world that had never been kind. Foster care had forged Emma's resilience, shuffled between homes where she was more burdened than child. She'd found solace in art, sketching on napkins, doodling in library books, crafting digital designs on borrowed computers. She'd designed logos for local shops, flyers for church bazaars, even a website for a neighbor's bakery, all unpaid, all in stolen moments. Her portfolio, a folder of half-finished dreams, sat untouched on an old laptop, its fan wheezing like a tired sigh. Tonight, the diner was quiet. Just Gus the trucker nursing coffee in the corner, and a new face at the counter. A man in a suit that screamed wealth despite its wrinkles. Emma slid a menu his way. "Coffee?" she asked, her voice warm but guarded. "Black," he muttered, eyes fixed on the counter. "Keep it coming," she poured, studying him. He wasn't a regular to polished to broken. "Rough night," she ventured, wiping down the counter. Jake snorted a bitter edge to it. Rough life. Emma didn't pry. She'd seen enough lost souls to know when to listen and when to nudge. "Sometimes the answers are simpler than we think," she said almost to herself. "Maybe you need to step back, see the bigger picture." Jake's head snapped up, her words slicing through the fog in his mind. He laughed, but it was hollow. "Simple. Nothing simple anymore." Emma shrugged, refilling Gus's mug. "Simple doesn't mean easy, but overcomplicating things just digs a deeper hole." Her words clung to him like damp clothes. For an hour he watched her work battering with Gus, humming along to Paddy Klein. Her movements steady despite the late hour. She was a stranger, yet her presence felt like a tether to something real, something he'd lost. When he left, he dropped a $50 bill on the counter, far more than the coffee's cost, and drove back to the city, her voice echoing, "See the bigger picture." Morning brought no mercy. The boardroom was a battlefield and Jake was outgunned. Richard Hale, the chairman, leaned forward, his voice like a guillotine. 48 hours, Jake. A recovery plan or we sell to the highest bidder. Your call. The room was a sea of grim faces. Investors he'd once dazzled, partners who had once trusted him. Now they saw liability. Jake's team scrambled all day pitching recycled ideas, cost cuts, new product lines, desperate mergers. Nothing stuck. By evening, panic clawed at him, his mind a tangle of regret and fear. He thought of Lily, her unanswered texts piling up. "Why don't you ever call?" And Claire, her voice cold on their last call. "You chose your company over us." The weight of it nearly crushed him. He couldn't face his empty penthouse, its silence louder than any boardroom argument. The city felt like a cage, its lights too bright, its noise too loud. He drove back to the Silver Spoon, the neon sign, a faint beacon in the dusk. Emma was there, balancing plates and a smile. Tommy coloring in a booth nearby, his crayons scattered like tiny bursts of hope. When she saw Jake, she raised an eyebrow. "Back already? Coffee again?" Jake nodded, then hesitated. "Last night you said something about the bigger picture." "What did you mean?" Emma paused, wiping her hands on her apron. "I just meant, sometimes we're so deep in the mess, we forget what we're fighting for. What's the heart of it, the thing that keeps you going?" Her question hit like a thunderbolt. What was he fighting for? The company, his pride, his legacy. He didn't know anymore. Over a burger and endless coffee, they talked. Jake kept his story vague. No billionaire confessions, but Emma shared hers, raising Tommy alone. The foster homes that shaped her, the dreams she'd buried to survive. Her honesty was a mirror reflecting a man who'd lost his way. Jake felt something shift, a crack in the walls he'd built around his heart. Dot. As he left, he tipped another $50, her words ringing in his ears. What's the heart of it? The next morning, Jake's team presented a dozen half-baked ideas, each one weaker than the last. The board's deadline loomed like a storm cloud, and desperation noted at him. Sitting in his office, he replayed Emma's words. She'd seen through his chaos with a clarity no consultant or executive could match. Maybe she had more to offer, something to pull him back from the brink. He drove back to the Silver Spoon that evening, heart pounding. Emma was wiping down tables, Tommy scribbling with crayons, his tongue poking out in concentration. Jake didn't waste time. "I need your help," he said, voice raw. "My company, it's about to collapse. You said something about the bigger picture. I need to know what you meant. Please." Emma froze, caught off guard. She wasn't used to being taken seriously, especially by a man who, despite his rumpled suit, carried the air of someone important. "I'm just a waitress," she said, hesitant. "I don't know your world." "You know more than you think," Jake insisted. "Last night you said it's about what matters. I'm losing that. Help me see it." Emma glanced at Tommy, then back at Jake. His desperation was real, and she recognized the fear in his eyes. The same fear she'd felt when she couldn't pay rent, when Tommy was sick with no insurance. "Okay," she said finally. "I've done some design work, small stuff, branding campaigns for local businesses. It's not much, but sometimes it's not about the product. It's about the story you tell." Jake leaned forward, his eyes intense. "What kind of story?" Emma grabbed a napkin and a pen, sketching as she spoke. "Something human. People don't buy tech. They buy feelings, trust, connection. If your company's in trouble, maybe it's because you've lost that. Show them who you are, not just what you sell." She slid the napkin over a rough logo with soft, inviting curves, a tagline, "Connect what matters." Jake stared at it, his mind racing. It was simple, bold, everything his company had forgotten, in its chase for profit. "Do you have more?" he asked, voice urgent. Emma bit her lip, uncertainty flickering. "I've got some mock-ups at home. Just ideas I played with for fun, but they're not polished. Show me, Jake said, almost pleading. Please, Emma's apartment was a world away from Jake's penthouse, a cramped one-bedroom with peeling paint, Tommy's toys scattered across the floor, and crayon drawings taped to the fridge. But it was alive, warm, a stark contrast to the sterile chill of Jake's life. Emma pulled out an old laptop, its fan whirring like a dying engine, and opened her portfolio, her hands trembling slightly. Jake was stunned. There were logos for local cafes, flyers for community events, a website mock-up for a bakery, and then a full branding campaign for a fictional tech company. Vibrant, human, innovative. It was everything Matthews Innovations had lost in its race for profit. The designs were raw but powerful with clean lines and a focus on emotional connection. Family sharing moments, small businesses thriving, people linked by technology that felt personal, not corporate. Why haven't you pitched this to anyone? Jake asked, scrolling through her work, his voice tinged with awe. Emma laughed a little bitter. Who's going to listen to me? I'm a waitress, not a designer. No degree, no connections, just this. You're wrong, Jake said, his voice firm. This is exactly what I need. He asked her to refine the campaign for Matthews Innovations. Emma hesitated. Tommy was her priority, and this felt like a risk. But Jake's sincerity, his raid, broke through her defenses. They worked through the night, Emma sketching, Jake brainstorming, their ideas blending into something powerful. A campaign that didn't just sell tech, but told a story of connection, of people over profits. Tommy slept on the couch, a blanket tucked around him, his soft snores, a quiet rhythm in the background. But there was a shadow over their collaboration. Emma sensed Jake was holding something back, a guarded edge to his enthusiasm. She didn't press, but the doubt lingered. Could she trust this stranger with her ideas, her dreams? She'd been burned before, by foster parents who promised care, by bosses who promised raises. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. The boardroom was a powder keg, and Jake was lighting the fuse. He stood at the head of the table, his team behind him, the board's eyes boring into him. Richard Hale's voice was cold. This better be good, Jake. Jake took a breath. Emma's napkin sketch burning a hole in his pocket. He presented her campaign, his voice steady despite the stakes. The new logo flashed on the screen. The tagline, "Connect what matters," bold and clear. The ads showed real people, families, entrepreneurs, students using Matthews Innovations tech to build lives, not just by products. It was a departure from the company's sleek, soulless image, and Jake could feel the room's skepticism. We've been chasing numbers, he said, his voice rising with conviction. But we forgot why we started this, to make lives better, to connect people. This is how we do it. This is who we are. He didn't mention Emma. Fear had gripped him. The board would never take a waitress's work seriously, would see his reliance on her as weakness, so he let them believe the campaign was his. A decision that felt like a stone in his chest, heavy and cold. Dot. Silence hung heavy. Then Richard leaned back, his expression unreadable. One shot. Jake, don't screw it up. The campaign launched. The next week, a blitz across social media, billboards, and TV. The response was electric. Customers shared stories of how Matthews Innovations tech had helped them, grandparents video calling grandkids, startups thriving on their platforms, students learning through their apps. Sales ticked up 15% in the first week. Investors called cautious but intrigued. The company wasn't saved yet, but it was breathing. Its pulse steady for the first time in months. 6 months later, Matthews Innovations was clawing its way back. The campaign had sparked a wave of goodwill, with sales up 40% and new contracts rolling in. Jake was still CEO, but he was different, humbler, more grounded. He'd started calling Lily every day. Their conversations awkward, but healing. He met Claire for coffee, apologizing for years of neglect, promising to be a better man, a better father. They were rebuilding slowly, one honest conversation at a time. But success came with a shadow. Jake hadn't told the board about Emma. He'd presented her campaign as his own, a betrayal born of fear and pride. The guilt gnawed at him, especially when he saw her designs everywhere, on billboards, in ads, on the company's revamped website. He saw Emma's face in every tagline, every logo, and it haunted him like a ghost. He went back to the Silver Spoon. One evening, a check in his pocket, $150,000, a consulting fee for her work. Emma was behind the counter, Tommy coloring in a booth, his crayons a riot of color. Jake slid the check across. "This is for you," he said, his voice thick. "For saving my company." Emma stared at it, her hands trembling. "I can't take this." "You earned it," Jake said, "and I want you to come work for me. Creative director full-time. You're too good for this place, Emma. You could change the world." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but her jaw tightened. "You didn't tell them it was me, did you?" Jake froze, guilt flooding him like a tidal wave. I didn't think they'd listen. I was trying to protect the idea." "You protected yourself," Emma said, her voice sharp, cutting through the diner's hum. "I trusted you with my work, my dreams, and you took credit for it." She pushed the check back and walked away, leaving Jake standing there, the weight of his mistake crushing him. He'd saved his company, but at what cost? He saw Tommy glance up, his innocent eyes a mirror of Emma's pain, and the stone in Jake's chest grew heavier. For weeks, Jake wrestled with his guilt. The campaign's success soared, sales were up 60%. Investor confidence was returning, and the board was calling it a miracle, but it felt hollow. He saw Emma's tagline on every ad, a reminder of his betrayal. He threw himself into being a better father, taking Lily to dinner, listening to her dreams of becoming a writer. He and Claire were rebuilding trust, their conversations raw but real. But Emma's words, "You protected yourself," echoed louder than any boardroom victory. He started visiting the Silver Spoon again, not to talk but to watch, to understand the woman he'd wronged. Emma was kind but distant, her smile professional, not personal. Jake knew he'd broken something fragile, something he hadn't realized he valued until it was gone. He saw her with Tommy, her fierce love for him, a reminder of what he'd lost with Lily, with Claire, with himself. One night, he waited until closing when the diner was empty, except for Emma and Tommy asleep in a booth. His crayons scattered like stars. "I was wrong," Jake said, his voice low. "Rah. I should have given you credit. I'm going to tell the board everything tomorrow, and I'm offering you the job again. Creative director full-time with benefits, daycare for Tommy, everything. You need to chase your dreams." "Not because I owe you, but because you're brilliant." Emma studied him, her eyes searching for lies. "Why should I trust you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because you showed me what matters," Jake said, his voice breaking. "You gave me a lifeline when I was drowning. I've spent my life building walls, pushing people away. You reminded me what it means to connect. Let me give you a chance like you gave me." Emma didn't answer right away. She took Tommy home, the check still on the counter, its edges curling in the diner's heat for 2 weeks. She wrestled with the decision, talking it over with Ms. Rosa, Tommy's daycare teacher and her only confidant. She saw the fear in her own heart, fear of change, fear of trusting again. But she also saw the truth in Jake's eyes, the same desperation she'd felt when she had nothing but dreams and a sketchbook. Emma said yes, but on her terms. She started part-time at Matthews Innovations, keeping her diner shifts until she was sure. Her first day was surreal, walking into a gleaming office tower. Tommy's hand in hers, her old laptop under her arm. Jake introduced her to the team, not as a savior, but as a talent, giving her full credit for the campaign. The board was stunned, some skeptical, but Emma's work spoke for itself. Her designs were already reshaping the company's image, and her ideas, fresh, human, bold, sparked new projects. From community-focused apps to partnerships with small businesses, Jake made good on his promise. At the next board meeting, he stood before them, his voice steady but vulnerable. "The campaign that saved us wasn't mine. It was Emma Carter's. She's a single mom, a waitress, and the most brilliant creative mind I've ever met. She saw what we'd forgotten: connection, humanity, purpose. We'd be fools not to bring her on." The room was silent. Then Richard Hale nodded, a rare glint of respect in his eyes. "Bring her in." Emma's transition wasn't easy. She juggled diner shifts, daycare drop-offs, and late nights refining designs. The corporate world was a maze: meetings, jargon, egos, but she navigated it with the same grit that had carried her through foster care. Tommy became a fixture at the office, his crayons brightening the conference room, his laughter a reminder of why she was there. The team embraced her not just for her talent, but for her perspective, her ability to see people, not just profits. Jake was changing too. He stepped back from the CEO role, naming a successor while staying on as a strategic advisor. He focused on Lily, rebuilding their bond through small moments ice cream runs. Late night talks about her stories, her dreams of becoming a writer. He and Claire were cautious but hopeful, rebuilding trust one conversation at a time. He started volunteering at a community center, mentoring kids from backgrounds like his own. Kids who reminded him of who he'd been before the suits and the skyline. But the shadow of his betrayal lingered. Emma was professional, but there was a distance, a wall she'd built to protect herself. Jake respected it, giving her space, but he vowed to earn her trust, not just her forgiveness. A year later, Matthews Innovations was thriving, its new direction, a beacon in the tech world. Emma was creative director, her designs the heart of the company's rebirth. Her apartment was bigger now, with a room for Tommy's art and a desk for her own. She'd enrolled in night classes, studying design formally for the first time. Her dreams no longer buried, but alive, vibrant, within reach. Jake was a regular at the Silver Spoon, not as a billionaire, but as a friend, sipping coffee and talking with Emma about life, ideas, and the things that mattered. Lily came too, shyly, showing Emma her own writing, a budding connection between the dreamers. Claire joined them sometimes, her presence tentative, but warm, a sign of healing. One evening, as the jukebox played a soft ballad, Emma invited Jake and Lily to a small art show at the community center, a showcase of her designs alongside Tommy's crayon masterpieces and Lily's short stories. The room was packed with locals, diner regulars, and even a few Matthews Innovations employees. Emma stood at the front, nervous but proud, presenting her work to a crowd for the first time. Jake watched, his chest tight with emotion. He saw Tommy beaming at his mom, Lily clutching her notebook, Claire smiling beside him. He realized this was the heart of it, the connection Emma had talked about that first night, the bigger picture he'd lost sight of. He stepped forward unprompted and spoke to the crowd. "This woman saved my company," he said, his voice thick. "But more than that, she saved me. She reminded me what matters: family, purpose, connection. I was lost and she showed me the way back. We all need someone like Emma Carter in our lives." Emma's eyes glistened, but she smiled, the wall between them crumbling. After the show, they sat at the Silver Spoon's counter, Tommy asleep in a booth, Lily and Claire chatting nearby. Jake raised his coffee mug to second chances, he said. Dot. Emma clinked her mug against his, her voice soft, defining the heart of it. The neon sign flickered outside, a beacon in the night for Jake. It was a reminder that empires rise and fall, but connection, real human connection, is what endures. For Emma, it was a testament to the power of a single idea, born on a napkin that rebuilt a life. And for both, it was a promise. No matter how far you fall, the smallest moments, the simplest truths can light the way home. 2 years later, Matthews Innovations was no longer just a tech company. It was a movement. Emma's vision had expanded beyond branding, inspiring initiatives that connected underserved communities with technology. From free coding camps to affordable apps for small businesses, she'd become a mentor, teaching design to kids like the one she'd been kids with, dreams but no chances. Jake had stepped away from the corporate world entirely, focusing on his family in the community center. He and Lily were closer than ever. Her first short story published in a local magazine dedicated to Dad, who learned to listen. Claire and Jake were remarried in a quiet ceremony, Emma and Tommy among the guests, their presence a quiet testament to the ties that bound them. The Silver Spoon remained a touchstone. Jake and Emma met there monthly, their coffee chats a ritual of reflection and hope. One night, Emma framed the napkin sketch, hanging it in her office at Matthews Innovations. A reminder of the night a broken billionaire walked into her diner, and everything changed. Dot. As they sat at the counter, the jukebox playing a familiar tune, Emma looked at Jake. You know, I never thought a napkin could change my life. Jake smiled, his eyes soft. And I never thought a waitress could change mine. They laughed, the sound mingling with the diner's hum, a symphony of second chances. The neon sign glowed outside, a beacon for the lost, the dreamers, the fighters for Jake and Emma. It was a reminder that the heart of any empire, whether a company or a life, is built on connection, trust, and the courage to start.